Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all are doing well. This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone, and this is what we're calling Live from the Bench. This is kind of our new little way of doing our live show. I hope this is of value to you. Today, we're going to talk about how to wire your guitar. And when we say how to wire your guitar, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go back to the basics of guitar wiring for those of you that are not super familiar. A lot of times people will take the control panel off of a guitar. A lot of times people will take the control panel off of a guitar, or they'll pull the pick guard off and they'll be completely overwhelmed with what they see there. But what we want to do today is give everybody kind of a simple roadmap to follow and kind of understand that it's something that you can visualize a little bit, and then it'll make it easier to approach projects and repairs and things like that, and to be able to troubleshoot. And so you might not get it all today, but it will sort of start to make sense, I hope. You might not get it all today, but it will sort of start to make sense, I hope. And on the other side of it also, remember as well that we're not getting super complicated here. And there are very many different aspects to guitar wiring that we're not going to cover today. And so, and we try to keep it pretty positive around here, but lately we've been getting a lot of people in the comments like, you didn't do it right, you didn't include blah, blah, blah. Just understand that we're trying to keep this as simple and concise as possible for as many people to be able to pick up the basic concepts. The idea for this is that you can take what you know from this, just the very simple things, and at least when you have a problem, be able to tell your guitar tech more accurately what your problem is or what's going on in the guitar. So today we're going to use some actual parts. There's not going to be really any soldering or live how-to stuff. What we're going to do here is I've got some actual parts, so we're going to see what the stuff looks like in real life. And then I've got some paper and some markers, and we're going to draw out some circuits, and I'm going to show you how to draw out some circuits so that we can, put this stuff together. So I'm going to move that camera over here and fiddle around a little bit. So bear with me for just a second. And then we're going to get a camera going on the piece of paper over here, and we're going to draw some stuff, and we're going to look at some stuff. So let's talk about basic guitar wiring. So give me 1 second. I'm actually going to clunk around and move my mic really quick too. Okay. That should pretty much do it. Okay. And let's give us a little bit more light on this piece of paper. All right. Okay. Thanks everybody for hanging out. So first of all, let's talk about the basic layout of what we have in a guitar. Okay, let's just use. All right, we've got some pickups laying here. So we've got. I just wound these coils this morning, so we're just going to use these as your general idea. In the guitar, it bears mentioning that every component, and this is in a basic guitar circuit, okay? This is not, there are other alternative circuits that are crazy, like series and some phase flipping stuff and all that sort of stuff. But we're talking about normal volume, tone, jack, a couple of pickups, a switch, circuit. Let's just get it out of the way right now that the black wire, okay, in most cases, your ground wire always has to be grounded. Every component in the guitar has to be grounded. So let's just get that out of the way, okay? And so we have a neck pickup and we have a bridge pickup. So let's just go with that. And then let's get ourselves over here a volume circuit and a tone circuit and an output jack. And then I guess we need a switch, okay? So this is pretty much everything in your basic bridge, neck, switch, volume, tone, output jack guitar this your basic setup, okay? We do know that every component in here needs to have a ground in order to work in its basic form, okay? And hopefully y'all can see what I'm doing here. I'm left-handed, so I'm writing over myself. I'm sorry. So this has to have a ground, and this has to have a ground. So everything has to have a ground. So beyond that, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the signal path of the guitar. So first of all, we know everything has been grounded. It's grounded in a couple of different ways, but we'll get into that in a minute. So just think logically. When you're troubleshooting a guitar, we need to think logically about how it's going to work, okay? So the volume, I like to think of the volume as the center of the entire circuit, because this is the thing that controls up or down, right? So at the volume, this is the whole deal. This is the on-off of the guitar. The volume pot is the whole on-off of the guitar. So there's two things we need to know. The output jack comes off of the volume because that's what sends it out to the amp. But how does the signal get there? There's two ways that it can happen. One way is we could take this pickup, we could hook it straight to the volume, and you could turn your volume up and down, and it goes to the output jack, and boom, don't worry about the tone pot yet. And there you go. So you ground one side of this pickup, and you hook the other side up to the output jack, or to the volume pot. If we have more than one pickup, then we need to switch it. So in that case, we would take the signal and we would go to the switch from this one. We would go to the switch from this one. And then we would go from the switch to the output or to the volume pot. It's really that simple. When you look inside of a guitar, a lot of times you see a lot of wires. But the bottom line is you have to understand that there's one wire from every component that goes to ground. You basically cut those out of the equation. And then there you just visualize where the sound is coming from. Okay, well, the sound is coming from the pickup. Okay, so the pickup's going to go to the volume pot. We know that. But in order to switch between pickups, we've got to put a switch between there. So we need to go from the pickup to the switch, then to the volume pot. It's basically that easy. The tone circuit is passive that comes off of the volume pot, and it's just got one little wire that comes over here, or a capacitor depending on the 50s wiring or modern. But one little wire that comes over here, and here's your tone pot, which is basically made into a variable resistor with a passive filter on it. So this is its own thing. So anytime you go into a guitar, so let's say we go into a guitar and we say, man, my neck pickup is not working for some reason. I don't know why my neck pickup's not working. I start with the volume pot. I say, okay, since the volume pot is the center of the entire guitar because it lets everything out to the amp, when I turn my volume pot up all the way to 10, do I get anything? Well, yeah, the neck pickup doesn't work, but the bridge pickup's working, the tone pot's working, but the neck pickup's not working. Okay, how does the signal get from the neck pickup to the volume pot? Well, it goes from the neck pickup to the switch to the volume pot. Okay, so then what we do is we come back here and we check the switch. If the switch is bad, then we know the switch is bad. Usually it's not the pickup. So that's what I'm saying. It's really just a matter of troubleshooting backwards. And like I said, I use the volume pot as the center of everything. Because, get this, if you turn up the volume and nothing is working, nothing at all, then you say, well, nothing's coming out of the guitar. So it's only one of two things. This is the gate that lets everything out of the guitar. So that means it's probably either the volume pot is bad or the output jack is bad, because that's the only way out of the guitar. It's real easy to think about it this way if we just visualize where the signal is coming from. With a 3 pickup guitar, so let's put another pickup in there. Same thing. We can change a switch style. So you would go to, let's say we go to a Strat style switch now. But it's the same exact thing. There's going to be a ground for everything, and then there's going to be a signal wire for everything. And I know that that's not the fundamental way that electronics works and how electricity flows. We could get into DC versus AC, and we could get into ground potentials and all that sort of stuff. But when you're troubleshooting your guitar, you're trying to visualize where the signal is going from. So somebody just brought up double volumes. So that's a whole different thing. So this was just a basic circuit. So let's go ahead and talk about double volumes. Let's do this again. All right, so now we've got, let's just do it again. This is fun. This is why we do it like this. So now we've got 2, let's pretend that this is humbuckers and this is like a Les Paul. And now we've got, remember, everything is grounded, so we're not even going to draw grounds. Everything is grounded, okay? So let's say, so now we've got a volume pot, and we're not going to even deal with the tone circuit because the tone circuit is passive to each volume pot. So then this is done a little differently. So this switch here, that's the switch. And it has, so let's draw this. So we'll just call that the switch. And it has, what's the easiest way to draw this? Basically, the pickup comes from here to the switch. This pickup comes from here to the switch. Okay? And then what happens is this volume pot comes to where this pickup is hooked up at the switch. This volume pot comes from where this pickup is hooked up at the switch. And then there is an output jack over here. And that's the circuit. So basically, now in a double volume situation, it's almost like the switch becomes the center of the circuit, because the signal will go from the pickup to the switch, and then to the volume pots individually, basically. So when you're troubleshooting this, it's a little bit different but then to tell you the truth, 99% of the time when you're doing this, the switch is the problem. The switch is the thing that goes bad anyway. But when we're talking about basic guitar wiring, one of the things we got to remember is that this is literally just signal and ground. I think a lot of people, and I guess that's the thing, you know, like you look at, let's get all this out of the way again. People look at a guitar circuit and they see all these wires, but really so let's put some more wires in there. So now we've got, so here's our pickup, and here is our volume pot, and here is our tone pot, but that's really all it is. But when you look at those wires, you might not know what you're looking at, but remember that every component has a ground and every component has a signal, and it's just a matter of sometimes getting a Sharpie out and saying, all right, the pickup is here and the output jack is here. What do I want my circuit to do? I want the sound from the pickup to go here, and then I want it to be adjustable. So we need to have a volume pot here. But I also have another pickup over here. So I also want to switch the one pickup to the other. So instead of doing this, I guess what I need to do is I need to have a switch in between here, so that I can go from my pickup to here, and then I can switch it, and then I can send that to the volume pot. Or sometimes I need to go, here's a pickup, and I want to adjust each volume separately. So let's do this. Let's go from here to here. So here's the volume, right? But I need to switch those separately. So I guess I need to run from here over to here to a switch to switch them. And then once they're switched, send that out to the output jack. It's literally as easy as visualizing what the signal is doing. And so the only other thing that kind of gets a little bit more complicated sometimes is, for instance, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to shake you. What is like when you're looking at like a blade switch like this, where there's a lot of stuff going on in there. So let's break it down. Okay, actually, instead of talking about that, let's break it down specifically into components now. So now that we know that we're just following a signal path. We're just imagining where we want the sound to go, really. Let's see. And I am going to catch up here. What about a Jazzmaster, which has 2 circuits and 2 volumes? So a Jazzmaster does a couple of different things. A Jazzmaster has your normal, actually this is out of a Jazzmaster, it has your normal volume tone jack, okay, and a 3-way switch. In fact, this is actually all out of a Jazzmaster. So it goes right there. And then what it does is it says on the way a Jazzmaster works, is over here, there's where the pickups, so the pickups are here. It takes one of the wires from the neck pickup, it comes over here and it says, you know what I want you to do? I want you to switch over to this other volume and tone circuit and work only over here. When then you flip it back and then it brings it back over there. It's a little bit more complicated and it's kind of a specialized thing, but that's basically what it's doing. It basically has 2 of these circuits. There's one up here and one down here, and it just switches the neck pickup back and forth between the 2. That's really all it does. It's not actually that complicated. So as we start, that's a great segue then into what we're talking about here, because we want to go into what each component in the circuit does. So when you look at a switch, when you look at various components, you want to understand what they're doing. So first of all, let's look at a volume pot. So a volume pot is like this, and it's got the square thing that comes off the front, and there's a lug, and a lug, right? So let's remember that one of them has to be grounded. So that's going to be this lug right here. So when you visually look at a volume pot, that lug right there is grounded to the volume pot. This is just a bunch of junk I had laying around. So that lug is always grounded. That's how you know it's a volume pot, because that lug is always grounded right there, okay? So and then what we basically have on a volume pot is the input is this one, and the output is this one when we're talking about a simple volume pot. So that means that this volume pot, whatever comes into the opposite side, so where'd that pot go that I just had in my hand? Whichever comes into this guy right here, which is that one right there, the opposite side is what you're going to be turning up and down. So if it's a pickup or if it's an input from a switch, wherever the signal's coming into the pot on this side, that's what you're turning up and down. And then this is the output that goes out to the output jack, okay? So if we go a step before that, we say, okay, well, there's a pickup here, and we've got one thing that's grounded, and then we've got the hot, and he comes over here to the input of there, and then we can turn him up and down with the volume pot, and then the output jack goes over here, right? Super simple. Now, let's make it a little bit more complicated. So now we have 2 pickups. One side of the pickup is grounded. And then we have the volume pot over here with its 3 legs, and one of those is grounded. So we'll just call that one the ground. But now we got to switch between those two. So now what we got to do is we got to have a switch that looks kind of like, let me see if I can draw this correctly. So the center usually is the ground, and then it's got like a wafer thing that goes like this, and we're going to call this the input. Actually, we're not going to talk about grounds. We'll just call this the input or the output. So a lot of times, here's what happens. That's kind of what internally, that's kind of what like a Gibson switch looks like. Okay, like a normal Gibson 3-way switch. And so when you look in there, you'll see one of the wires from one of the pickups goes to this side of the switch, and then the other wire goes to the other side of the switch. Let's make this correct because it's not ground, it's red. So one of the wires goes from one of the pickups to the switch, the other wire goes to the other pickup of the switch, and then the output of the switch then goes to the volume pot. So when you look into a guitar and you see that, because you will see that, that's exactly what you're looking at. Now, here's the trick. This is the real trick. Yes, I am left-handed, but I play right-handed. The real trick is the fact that in a real guitar, you can't see both ends of the wire. So a lot of times you don't know which is which. Or you don't, like you'll see it sitting on the switch there. Like, you look at this switch in the guitar and you've got a wire here and a wire here. You don't know which one is which. So basically the easiest way to do it is put an ohm meter on it and do a continuity check. Basically, that's the easiest way to do it. And what you would do is you'd say, well, this side of the switch is on what I do. I'll show you what I do. Well, I can't find it. But basically I have a piece of cable with a wire sticking out of it, and I stick it into the output jack. Or you can just do it on the output jack cable, on the cable. So this is the easiest way to do it. So let me draw this real quick. So here is, okay. So here is a plug for a guitar, okay? That's your normal plug. That plug through the output jack is hooked up like this, right? When you turn your volume all the way on, then whatever pickup is switched on at that particular time, you'll be able to read the resistance of it at the output jack. So if you take a meter and you put one on the tip and one on the ring of the sleeve of the output jack like that, and it says nothing, then you flip the switch over to the other side and it says 7.2. And you're like, oh, okay. So that pickup is switched on when it's switched this way. When you put it in the middle, it'll read half of what both pickups are added together because it's in parallel. And then you flip it all the way over to the other way and it'll read whatever the other pickup is. So if you check this like this and you have nothing, when you flip it over to the bridge pickup, you go, there's nothing on the bridge pickup. At the end of the guitar, there's nothing on the bridge pickup, but when I flip it over to the neck pickup, it reads 7.6, just like it's supposed to. All right, well, let's go backwards. We know the volume pot's working because we can read one pickup and not the other. So now we go back to the switch and we say, okay, let's read between the hot, because that pickup's not working. Let's read between the hot from that pickup and ground, any ground. And we say, well, it says 7.8, which is what that pickup is supposed to be. But when I look at it at the output jack, it's not there. That means that that signal is not going through that switch. That means that switch is bad. That's how you troubleshoot backwards. Start at the output jack like this and turn the volume knob all the way up, and then flip back and forth and say, does it look right? Now, like I mentioned, people may not realize this. May not realize this, but when two electronic components are wired in parallel, they will read half of them, okay? So let's just make it easy. So let's say this is 8K and this is 8K. When the pickup switch is in the middle, the measurement at the output jack will be 4K. It'll be half because it's in parallel. So don't be freaked out by that. So you'll flip it over to one side and it'll read 8K. You'll put it in the middle, it'll read 4K, and then you'll flip it over to the other side and it'll read 8K again. And if one of those is bad, or if one of those measurements isn't correct, then you work your way backwards through and you say, and you just check it on both sides of the switch. That's all you do. Check it at the volume. So you can check it at the output jack first, and then check it between here and a ground at the volume. And then you check it on this side between that and a ground, and that will isolate pickups versus switches. Just go backwards through it like that. The reason, and what I'm getting at here the entire time, is that people kind of overthink this entire thing, and they really think that it's really complicated. But if you just rule out all the grounds and make sure that they're good, and just check that they're grounded, and then all the other wires in the guitar are just the path of the sound. To put it brutally simply, they're just the path of the sound. That's all it really is. And it's just a matter of making sure that the path of that sound goes from here, through the switch, through the volume pod, to the output jack. That's it. We did not talk about a tone pot, so let's talk about tones. Variable resistor. And so internally what a tone pot looks like is like a racetrack that goes around that, like in middle like this, and then there's another one in the middle like this. And what you're doing when you put a capacitor across there is you're just putting a capacitor like this, and when you adjust the pot, it goes around and it changes the value. That's all it is. And so your capacitor is hooked here on the middle and then to the outside of the case, which is grounded again, right? And then this lug, and it's just a resistor. And so that's why we don't talk about it the rest of the time, because it's literally just a variable resistor with a capacitor on it that then just hooks up to the volume pot. That's all it is. Super simple. And it hooks up to the signal on the volume pot. Because a passive tone cap pot, all it is it's just leaching signal off of the circuit. So when you look at the basic wiring of a volume to a tone circuit, so let's just talk about that for a second. So here we have, this is our volume, and this is our tone. And we have like this, and we have the capacitor, and he kind of sits up on top of it, and then he's grounded, or he's soldered to there like that. So here's our cap, and then this over here is grounded to the guitar, okay? So there's that. So now, and then this is your volume, and that is grounded to there. Super simple. What people don't realize is, so then your signal comes in, so right? Like your signal comes in from your switch or from your pickup or whatever it is, and then your signal goes out to the output jack. Super simple. How we add a tone circuit is, just think of it this way. And this is another thing when you think about choosing tone caps and pots and stuff. I don't view it as part of the circuit per se, because what it's doing is it's just leaching signal off of the circuit. So if your signal's coming in here and going out here, then all you got to do is hook up this guy right here like that, and then he's going to leach off the circuit whatever frequency you decide. So when I'm designing a guitar, I'm putting a guitar together, I first of all think about what I want the guitar to sound like. And then I think about what I want the guitar, what effect I want to put on that guitar with the tone circuit. And so that's why a lot of times you'll hear me talk about using a 250K pot here and a 500K pot here, and it's not the same. And sometimes that caps a 22, sometimes that caps a 47, because I think of the rest of the guitar circuit as making the sound, and I think of the tone circuit as just leaching off of that sound. And I want to decide how I want to draw off of the rest of the circuit with this right here. So that's why we don't talk about it in the whole rest of the thing, because many times, first of all, the tone circuit hardly ever fails, except if the pot goes bad. And you'll just know that because it'll scratch and do weird stuff. Or if it doesn't work at all, if a tone pot does not work at all, the cap never goes bad. It's the ground right here. The ground for that tone pot is probably bad, which means you just have to hit it with a soldering iron and it's fine. But just a little tip into how I look at this stuff. I visualize this is its own thing. I want the guitar to sound a certain way, and then I shape that sound with this right here. Too many people put too much emphasis on this and screw up the entire thing. And it's just easier to think of it as a separate little circuit that is an add-on to it. Otherwise, you're always chasing. Because you've got this handicap on the circuit. Like, unhook it and decide if you like how the guitar sounds. And then hook it back up and put it on 10 and decide if it changed it so much that now you can't stand it. Well, then that means you need to get a different tone pot and cap. And you can play with that. But this right here is really super key to figuring all that out, because it affects everything. But it should not be the bass line. Everybody puts so much emphasis on that and makes it the big bass line of the tone because they call it the tone pot. But it's leaching off the rest of it. So, all right, let's go back and hit some comments here. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry about that. Hang on one second. Could you tell about proper grounding in one humbucker, one volume, no tone guitar? Absolutely. Yes, we can talk about that. Live video on humbuckers and having them do both. Yes, we could totally do that. Hang on, I'm just going through I know it's boring to look at. I'm sorry. Is there such a thing as a four-way toggle like in a Les Paul, except a four-way? You know, I don't know about in a Les Paul. Obviously, there isn't a telly. Talk about shielding options. Yeah, we're actually going to do a whole video on noises and shielding and stuff. Should the signal and ground wires be twisted together? That is a great question. What is the best way to test components without taking the pickguard and the strings off each time? All right, so we just discussed that, kind of. And that goes back to here. Let me grab that other piece of paper. And then we're going to talk about hooking up and grounding correctly. So yes, Mr. Van, this is exactly what we're talking about. So let's say you've got your two pickups, and you got your switch, and you got your volume pot, and you got your output jack. Very first, take your ohm meter with the guitar unplugged from the amp. Just plug a cable into your guitar, and then take the loose end of the cable and go from the tip to the sleeve of the plug. Turn the volume knob all the way up, and then test your pickup switch and check for readings of your pickups. Okay? And remember, that your neck pickup will read what your neck pickup is, your bridge pickup will read what your bridge pickup is, and then the middle will read half. Because it's parallel, it'll read half, okay? If one of those things doesn't work, then come back here and check at your switch again. So then check the pickups individually. Say, okay, here's the hot wire from the pickup, go to ground. Oh, 8K, that seems right. Hot wire to ground. Oh, 8K, that seems right, because that's what it says on the box. But when I go over here and I do it, it doesn't work. It means the switch is bad. If the volume pod is bad, nothing works. Or it works intermittently. So that's how you do that. So let's talk about grounding real quickly. We have, just so you know, we have really good shielding video on our YouTube channel. It's the best one on YouTube, in my opinion. We have a bunch of really good shielding videos on YouTube. In fact, there's a playlist for that. When we ground a humbucker, do I have one sitting here? So here's the thing about humbuckers. We're going to draw here. Sorry. I'm a little anal about that paper. I want it to be clean so that you guys can see what I'm doing here. Sorry. Okay. So we've got a humbucker. And we're going to draw two different humbuckers here, okay? Because we're going to do it differently with both of them. One of them is just going to have that braided wire on the outside like a normal old-fashioned humbucker, right? And then it'll have sticking out of there that like cloth wire with the little hot wire sticking out of the end. With those sorts of humbuckers, you don't have to worry about shielding anything because this outside braid is typically soldered to the case of the pickup. And then at this end, when you solder it to the volume pot, the hot wire, so here's our, right? And then this guy's your ground. This hot wire will typically be soldered here, and then this braid will be like stuck to the side of the pot. So now you have ground here, and the pickup is correctly grounded. I do not do it that way because I do not like that wire because it limits everything and it is noisy. So the way I do it is there is a wire that comes off the pickup and there is 5 wires. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Because there are 2 coils on a humbucker. And there's a start and a finish. Actually, we'll just do it this way. There's a start and a finish, and a start and a finish on each humbucker. So there will be 4 wires. So you'll have, on my pickups, this one is green, this one is black, this one is red. Oh wait, no, this one is white. And this one is red. So this is our north side and this is our south side. So we have red and green on this coil and we have black and white on this coil. So what we do is all those wires come out of here individually. So now we have white, black, green, red. And then there's also another wire that's a bare braid, and then this becomes the ground. So it grounds the entire outside of the pickup, but it does not ground the coils individually. It grounds the whole housing of the pickup, but not and so you'll put that somewhere. And then that allows us to, we could do one of 2 things. We could attach black and green together like this, and that makes it just a humbucker, and then the white one goes off to a ground, and then the red one goes to the volume pot, Or we could send this over to a switch that breaks these two apart and puts them back together for a coil split. So it's a whole lot more versatile. Or you can make it to where they're parallel. You could do series. You could do all kinds of out of phase, all kinds of crazy stuff. That's another day. But that is how you properly ground a humbucker. Old-fashioned pickups and most things that you see are typically going to just have one wire coming out with a braid, and you just ground the outside of that braid. Or it'll have like a little wire, like a metal wire that you just stick somewhere on a ground. Newer humbuckers will have 4 conductors, and each manufacturer has a different, you can download this off the internet. Each manufacturer has a different color code for which each wire does. But you look at this and it looks super complicated. But what it really comes down to is that there's 2 coils, and each coil has 2 wires on it, because you have a start and a finish of each coil. That's all it is. We have a whole video also on how to identify which one is which. I'll tell you how. It's really super simple. So let's say you have a humbucker. This is fun. This is getting super deep, and I didn't mean to get this deep today, but whatever. So let's say you have a humbucker, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 wires, and you know that's the ground. So there we go. So you have 4 wires coming out of a humbucker, but you don't know. You got the coil here, and you got the coil here, like the screws and the slugs, and you don't know which one is which. How do you figure out? This is really fun. Do you know how to figure out which one of these 4 wires goes to what coil over here and how to hook this up correctly? Or are you just going to solder the thing over and over again, and the wires are going to get melted and a pain in the butt? I'll show you exactly how to do this. This is super cool. Let me grab... Well, I'm just going to tell you how to do it. Go in your toolbox. This is crazy. Go in your toolbox and get a socket, okay, like a deep well socket from your mechanic toolbox from working on your car, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to hook up your meter to 2 wires. Doesn't matter, just pick 2. And you're going to take that socket and you're going to rub it on one side of the pickup. Not the whole thing, not like this. On one side. You don't have to rub it, but you can put it right above it, and you just go like this back and forth real fast. Okay? And on your meter, if you have the right 2 coils, if you have the right 2 pickups, wires, you can make voltage. Here, let me show you. Oh, these aren't magnetized because I haven't magnetized them yet. Crap. Here, let me grab a pickup. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, we'll use a Strat pickup for example. I bet you didn't know you could do this. This is real fun stuff. This is why we go live and do fun stuff. I did a video on this a long time ago. So let's hook up a pickup. Oh, I guess I need something metal too. Let me see if this will work. It might not work because it might not be enough mass. It needs to have some mass, like a socket or something. Okay, so we got 0 volts. Can you guys see that? Okay, here, let's put it like that. Okay, we got 0 volts. What does a pickup do? A pickup makes volts when you vibrate a string over it. So let's take this little Allen wrench and move it over the pickup, and we can make volts. See that? It's not very many, but that's all that matters. So now on a humbucker, you've got 4 wires coming out, and you take a socket and you go over the top of it like that, and you go, oh, well, it's not making any volts. Okay, well, let me try these 2 wires. All right. Oh, that one made some volts. Now here's the cool part. You got a negative and positive. You put the black one on the negative, and you put the white one on the positive, and you go make those volts. Right? And it will swing positive first, then negative if it's in phase. If you go this way and you had it out of phase, it'll go negative first, then positive. That's how you know you got it in phase. So, you take your meter, you pick a couple wires, you go like this with a socket wrench, and it goes negative, positive, negative, positive. Well, I made voltage, but that means, bloop, there you go. Now we're in phase. Same thing over here. You do that until you figure out the combination of wires that you need. Super cool stuff. Super cool stuff. I think that's it. Here, hang on. Give me 1 second, okay? And I know sometimes we're kind of all over the place with this stuff, but you guys drive the questions and we just answer them. So that's what's really fun about it. What are we going to talk about next week? Shielding, I guess. That seems to be the thing that's coming up. So I guess we could talk about shielding next week, yeah? Does that sound good to everybody? Can you explain how to do a 7-way wiring mode? That's for a different day. And what I would tell you on that is take what you learned today about just follow the signal. Okay? I bet you could do a 7-way wiring mode if you just realize follow the signal. And then actually that one on like a strap, that one's a little tough because the switching is weird. And what I would tell you with that one is just do the same thing I do and Google the diagram. That's what I will tell you guys 90% of the time when somebody comes to me and says, can you do this weird wiring? I say, yep. And I go and I Google it and I make sure it works. You gotta be careful with that because some guys will just get on there and draw stuff and, and it doesn't always work, and it doesn't work right, or there's a better way to do it. So sometimes you gotta Google around a little bit. But there are some, Seymour Duncan has tons of really good wiring diagrams, especially for that kind of stuff. And a double pole, double throw switch is real simple. There's a one side, other side, and output is in the middle. So think of it this way. You got 3 switches. Whenever the switch is over here, it does this. Whenever the switch is over here, it does this. And this is the output. It's that simple. And then when it's double throw, double pull, there's just 2 of them side by side. And this one and this one are not hooked up. That's all it is. Real easy. That's all I can think of right now. I hope everybody had a great day. This was really fun. I wasn't really feeling good. I got a really bad headache today. And I had tons of pickups to make this morning and a bunch of stuff to ship, and I really had a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me. We will do, okay, keep hitting comments in here and questions, because I'm getting the ideas for these videos from you guys. It appears that next week is going to be about shielding. And yeah. Oh, and should you twist a signal wire to ground? I always do because it makes it quieter. So like if you'll look at these, like all of my pickups, the pickup wires are twisted together. There's a lot of people will say it does and doesn't do a thing. It does not hurt. It doesn't make it noisier. So I always do it. But we'll get into shielding because I'm going to say a bunch of stuff next week that you're not going to like about shielding. So that'll be fun. I'm actually doing another video on shielding and about EMI and RF noise and where it comes from. So that's actually coming next week also. So by the time you see this live on Tuesday, there will be a new shielding video on our YouTube channel. Wire gauge size in a guitar doesn't matter. Doesn't matter at all. Everybody wants it to, but it doesn't matter. Yep. Wiring size doesn't matter. Capacitor size doesn't matter. Pot size only matters because pot diameter matters because it's the bigger one is you can be more accurate with it. It's just a simple mathematics of ratio. But yeah, super easy stuff. You guys, this has been really fun. Thanks for hanging out with me this week. And I know some of this is a little bit long and laborious, but this is why we do it, because we get a little deeper into some of this stuff. You know, I can do a video in 5 or 6 minutes and put it on YouTube, but to hang out with this and talk a little bit more about it, yeah, man, super cool. Check out those other videos on shielding. We do have one on how to hook up a coil split with a double pole, double throw switch. And we have pretty much videos on all this stuff already. But sometimes when you're going live, it helps to kind of talk and break it down more and be able to do this stuff together. So hopefully some of this was helpful. Hopefully you learned something. Some of it's like, it's way easy. I've already done this a million times. But what I want you to do is think signal chain. It's the same thing as your pedals. It's the same thing as anything else. All we're doing is we're trying to get music from here to here. That's all we're doing. Everything needs to be grounded. Everything needs to be grounded. So just ground everything and check all that and make sure it's all grounded. Number one thing, make sure everything is grounded. You just take your probe and you put it on something that's supposed to be grounded and you put it on something else that's supposed to be grounded, and if they're connected, then it's grounded. Make sure that everything is supposed to be grounded is grounded. So volume pot, tone pot, switch, output jack, pickups. Everything needs to be grounded. Beyond that, all it means is that you're just following signal through the guitar. When I pluck the string, the pickup makes a signal. The signal goes to a switch to tell it which pickup I'm listening to. Then the switch goes to the volume pot, and the volume pot goes out to the jack. You just follow the sound in your head, and wherever the sound's not going, you figure out why it stopped going through there. And 90% of the time, it's the switch. Because that's the thing you function the most. And in less expensive guitars like Epiphones and stuff, and like less expensive Strats and stuff, that's the thing they cheap out on. You can get away with everything cheap in a guitar. Output jacks even, pots, but switches, that's the first thing you replace. We have them on the website, by the way. We have really good ones on the website for all this stuff. So. But anyway, that's that. Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate everybody's attention today. If you have any questions, keep leaving them in the comments below. I love the fact that we had so much discussion today and interaction. It was great. Please share what we do with as many people as you can. And remember that we have merch available below. You can buy a coffee cup or a t-shirt and share what we do with as many people as possible. I really appreciate it. Thanks, and we'll talk to you very soon.